Hi gang, we've got another totally random tidbit for you this week. Andy's been working deep on the theme customizer that's built into 5.7. I've already shown a little bit of this in the past, but we've really flushed things out. There's a whole new way of setting up themes, new types of things you can customize. We started to integrate stuff out of less, which is really cool. And as we did before, we just kind of hit record on Andy's computer while we were doing our weekly review. So you'll have to suffer through some of our shenanigans, but you'll get an unabridged view into the creative review of 5.7 theme customization. Thanks.
Hello! Today we are going to be talking about theme customization in Concrete 5.7. And just to sort of get the lay of the land, this is Concrete 5.6. You may not be aware, but themes in Concrete 5 can be customized through your dashboard. I say you may not be aware because it's super buried, and if you didn't go into the dashboard and click this customize button on the theme, you wouldn't know that this functionality exists.
Way in there.
Yeah, so when I say customize, I mean Greek yogurt is a theme that we're obviously all super familiar with. You can go into here and without messing with any CSS or HTML, you can go and edit certain properties that we have deemed editable through this interface.
So that is the theme designer adds a comment to any style they want editable. And a lot of theme developers in the marketplace have found this buried functionality.
They have.
And there'll be a huge header of like 100 styles that are all named as best that you could.
Yeah.
But it's unmanageably painful.
That's true. So going through this, so Franz brings up a good point. One of the goals with this customization stuff when we first did it was we didn't want it to only be available to programmers. We wanted, you know, a theme developer or designer to be able to add this functionality after the fact to a theme that was done. So looking at Greek yogurt in 5.6, you can see how we do that. We have these, I think it's actually in a different file, typography.css. You can see, I thought this was tremendously clever at the time. We kind of do this through annotated CSS. So we've got the body background here, and the background colors is handled through CSS. And by adding these comments around the background color, we have deemed this property editable in the style sheet. So the body-background variable gets created with the default color here. And it works pretty well for a few limited types. And that's probably one of the, beyond this just being super buried, there are very few types that support this type of setup. So there's color, as you can see up here. There's like a super basic font picker that we have not touched since sort of proof of concepting it, you know, at the beginning. And then you can add your own CSS in this tiny box. But that is it. So you can add support, you can customize style sheets, and you will see themes with tons and tons of stuff on there. It is to their credit that they've got this, because we haven't put much effort in making this feature super easy to discover
No, we built it.
or
That's
use.
cool, and then we left it alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we want to change that. That is not the best way to do that. And so in order to do that, we're going to need to you know, flesh out some of the types, make the interface better, and make it, you know, easier to find and more exciting to work with. So it was a good first step, but we're going to do better in 5.7. So this is a super bleeding edge version of 5.7 that I have in a private branch in GitHub that I'll be merging back soon. The reason for that would be pretty obvious once you look at the commit history, because there's a lot of decisions and then undecisions and indecisions and just, you know, making good ideas, then remaking them, and then until you get it finally right. And it's worked pretty well. So we should have known when we first did the customizer that it was going to fall flat, because unlike everything else in Concrete 5, it wasn't in context, and that's one of the things that we do best. So we should have made it in context. And now that we have these panels, we really have the ability to do that. So you'll see as I go into my themes for a particular page, I can get into the customizer over here, and all of my styles are listed on the left in different little sets. And you see at the top we have presets, and we'll get to that in a second. Over here we've got some sets of styles, And these, in an earlier version of 5.7, we kind of faked this by just grouping based on type. So we put colors together, and then we put type down there, and that's yeah, it's like that is a set, but is not, sort of loses the point. So now these are actual sets that you can define, and you can open them and close them and stuff like that. As we continue down, you'll notice, let's just go through some of these. So as we click in here, you'll notice we have a nice new color picker. We're no longer using whatever that other color picker was. We're using Spectrum, which is, you know, I don't know how many different ways you can do a color picker, but it looks nice. It matches our theme. You can copy the color declaration into different instances of these things, which is awfully nice when you're trying to actually make two colors line up in this interface, which is pretty cool. You got an opacity slider in here, which is pretty keen, and it works pretty well. We have a revamped new font picker, which has many more options, has text color inside the font picker, so you don't have to actually have two separate things for it. It's got different unit support for different things like this. You can actually, move stuff around and do all this kind of jazz.
We made this, or are we using this?
We made this because there is nothing out there.
Spectrum is MIT? Or
yes,
LGPL?
Spectrum is MIT.
Sweet.
And we have a couple new selectors as well. This is probably one of the more exciting portions of this. We have a size selector, so you can have a margin size here. Supports different units as well. And we have an image selector, which will work from the file manager, and we will get to that momentarily.
For the size, can the developer who designed the theme, can they set the limit on it? Like you can only go up to 30?
They cannot.
What is it, just 120 is the deal?
It's just a variable, and you can set it to whatever.
Oh, I see. It's actually, it just goes up to whatever.
Yeah, to whatever you want it to be.
Cool.
And
for that image, is it just that we're sniffing for background image CSS?
I'm gonna hold on and get through this before I. That is an excellent question. Stay tuned. We're going to come back around. We're going to table that for the moment. It's a good question. You can see the wheels turning, and that's good. So as we go through this, some of this will be familiar if you played with this at all in 5.7, because a lot of this functionality is similar. As you change this, one of the very nice new features in this is that the preview happens on the right, for the particular page you're viewing in real time. This is not what the live site sees, of course, but it's much nicer. I mean, we had preview before, but it was kind of comical in that it was in that tiny window in your dashboard, which is already in like a window inside your browser, so it's kind of crazy. You can go through here. You can make some awesome changes, like turning it into Comic Sans, make it a little bit bigger. It's going to look super good, you guys. You can...
We are recording this, by the way.
Really?
I think so.
The red button.
Usually that thing goes away.
Oh, yeah.
Probably leave that in.
Well, hello, everybody.
That is funny. So you see that actually adds some space here. If I choose a file from in here, let's put in Valencia. I've got a little background image down there. It's super beautiful now. So I have succeeded at this point in really mucking up my awesome theme with my own personal decisions, which is exactly what this is for. Okay. Where was I? I lost myself. So if you want to hit Save Changes, you can, another new feature in this, which is nice, is you can either apply this to the entire site or just to this page. This was working in 5.7. This new version of the customizer, I have to actually make that work again. Currently only the entire site works, but we're on the home stretch of this functionality. It's very, very close. But I don't want to do that quite yet because I realized that what I have made here is really crappy. So I want to kind of undo what I did. And I'm just thinking, it would be great if there was some way I could just get something that I knew looked good instead of whatever I had created. So I'm going to go back to the default Greek yogurt because because that's so much better. It already looks a million times better. It reloads the panel on the left with the decisions, so I can if I made one wrong move, I can I can keep working on this. But then I also have these presets. So if I click on this guy, you'll notice I have a completely new set of styles, and these work with the same variables that you have on the left, and but they can be completely different stuff. So you'll notice I had been using a Merriweather Google font. Now I'm just using Helvetica. I had, my top margin had been in pixels, but now it's in EMs. There's a lot of flexibility there. You can load in different images.
Where did the fonts come from again?
The fonts are still hard-coded. We need a good way to... This is one of the last things on a sort of discuss list, because there is a list of fonts in the widget that are just these, because that was super easy to add in, and I think that matches our old stuff. If your theme style sheet has its own custom font, we don't screw that up. We just leave that in as an option in the select menu for you. But if you wanted to add Google fonts to it or something like that, which, I mean, be a pretty nice addition, something like that, we should probably, there's probably a good way to do that, and it bears some discussion. So right now, it's just hard-coded. But if your theme provides a font that we don't know about, we won't, switch it to Comic Sans when saving or something like that. So I've got this guy now, and that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to save this theme to the entire site. And that is my complete new, that is my theme customizer.
Awesome.
So I wanted to go through some of the implementation details of this before, because as you might imagine, this level of sort of these new selectors, this kind of stuff, it wouldn't be too surprising to learn that the old system didn't really support some of that stuff quite as nicely as the new system might. So going through some of this, the goal was still to always make it designer friendly, so you're going to have to edit some files in order to add this functionality to your themes, but you shouldn't have to mess with PHP. So the first thing to do is go into the Greek Yogurt CSS directory, and you'll notice we've got a styles.xml. So if I open this guy up, you'll notice I've got something that's pretty easily readable. And this just defines your sets and your styles and what types they are and what their variable names are. So they map pretty much one-to-one. Not a lot of magic there. So doesn't have anything to do with presets yet. So that maps to these guys here. So if I reorder stuff in here, it will take effect immediately. If I rename variables in here, it shouldn't screw up any existing style sheets, but it might, not be. It's not going to break anything, but you might not load in all the default data until you mess with the style sheets. So that's pretty easy to read and understand. And then as we delve into presets, you'll see that these are our two presets. So every theme, customized theme, needs a defaults.less file. That is just the Greek Yogurt preset up here. If we don't have any presets, we won't show this box, but you still need to have the default values come from somewhere. And you'll notice these are less files, and that is because this entire customization engine runs from the style sheet parsing less language instead of the less non-union equivalent language that was concrete5's theme style sheet parser before. There was no style sheet parsing language when we did the first customization stuff, but now that there is one that's widely used, it seems like it would be a shame to not, leverage all those tools and understanding. And a lot of designers out there are familiar with this syntax and stuff. So let's go through one of these.
I had a question really quick.
Yes.
You mentioned if there is no presets, it won't show that box.
Yes.
I understand that. Is there a way to get back to the default?
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there is a reset customizations button. I think it's probably broken at this point.
What does that do when you have multiple presets? Does it just back to the Greek yogurt?
It would probably. So when you change this guy and you choose it, your preset goes away because it's
Yeah.
no longer a
Yeah.
preset. You know, this button is kind of vestigial. I don't know that it needs to. Yeah, I'm
Well,
dropping
that's
some
not-
knowledge on you. Yeah, I practiced this before. No, I didn't really
It
practice.
would go to the first preset.
Yeah.
That's I imagine the first preset. The preset should always be there, and if there should always just be at least one, which is the default.
No, there does have to be at least
There is a
one.
default. If there is only one, you don't need to show it. If
You
there's-
could.
because there's only one.
Right now we do,
You have
so.
a reset button either way.
Yeah.
And,
This could just click the first thing in the
well, because
list.
if you show it, maybe by 5.7.4,
Is there-
the next thing will be is how do I save my settings as a preset,
Yeah.
so I can
Yes.
switch between morning and
That's going to
evening
be a nightmare.
themes.
But actually, that wouldn't
Which
be
is
that
a
hard
fine
to
idea.
do.
Well, that
It's
was my
pretty
next
good.
question.
Yeah, no,
Like,
of course, yeah.
Because like,
Kinda
so the
funny how
user
it-
can't make their own
Nice.
preset.
No, they cannot. That is up to a designer to do. The
No,
theme
I was
designer
okay.
should make the presets. The theme user should make it look good for their site. They should leave it alone because it's a website. But yeah, I'm sure.
No,
we'll
I was
do
curious.
it
No, no,
and all
yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
No, it's a good question.
Money and time allows.
So as we go through this, you can see there's presets directory. You just put a list of variables. You can't put any styles in this because there's no point to it. You just put variables in the less format in here. The first two can come anywhere in the site or in the style sheet. These are just custom ones we're using to name it. So Orange Sunset determines the name of the thing on the left, or in the actual preset UI here. And then we've got a super sweet concrete icon custom function that determines your little like swatch lozenge thing over there. So you can choose the 3 best colors for your...
Are you actually choosing 3 best colors, or is it just like upload an icon image?
No, those are choose colors and you make
Oh, cool, cool.
standardized.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Kudos.
Yeah.
Plus point.
Yeah, no.
Robler.
You know, you could convince yourself that that looks like a flag.
I love it.
Um,
I don't need to convince
No, that was the point. It's like choose. I don't know. Like what symbolizes you?
No, and like at first I was like, well, just pick the 3 that like programmatically pick the ones that sounds terrible. So
Yeah.
this works this is elegant and was easy, reasonably easy. Yes, no, there's some serious hackability here. It will be interesting. So going through this, you can see all of these variables show up in a certain capacity in this XML. So body background shows up in here, and you'll notice in here we've got body background color. So it's a little confusing because body background is the variable name. But then it gets color appended to the actual variable. And the reason for that is some of these variables, like body type, have like 8 variables associated with them because they control multiple properties. So this gives you a lot of flexibility there. We can document this. It's pretty, unlike the other format, there's not a lot, it behaves consistently. So, and then we've got this in here. You can just copy these out, change the values. It will add new presets dynamically on the fly. And then finally, if we go into the theme itself, we'll go through the style sheet in a second. You can see at the top we load some CSS normally. That's just standard CSS in the theme. Then we've got CSS that loads the value of a style sheet passed through the theme get style sheet function. So theme is a variable that gets injected into your view at this point automatically based on the currently active theme object, and it has the method get style sheet now. And the reason for that is, well, it makes more sense in the theme class, honestly, than in the view class. And it does some magic to locate it within the theme. And you'll notice it's typography.less. And so we look in the CSS directory, and we find typography.less. And this is just a CSS file with less variables in it that match the variables from our different less files. So by default, if you don't have anything set, it will just include presets defaults.less because I've got that up here just like a less file would normally. And then if I set stuff in here, those variables get injected ahead of this, and they supersede that, and so they go into here. See ya. And so it just works like less normally. So the one cool thing about this is if you don't want to have your theme be customized, you can still use all of this to build a theme for a client. You can use less and build a theme and include it that way, and it will automatically compile, and you won't have to build it using some kind of build script. And you don't have to use the customizer to power those variables. You could throw a Twitter Bootstraps theme in there and compile it on the fly through this function. It's just less is now sort of a full-fledged way to render a style sheet on demand in Concrete 5, and this gives you the ability to inject variables into that. So that's pretty cool for developers who want to do that. And it is, as I mentioned, it is totally a full less environment with all of that excitement. So Franz mentioned it'll be interesting to see what developers do with that. I totally agree. It will be very interesting. I decided to whip up an example of something super quickly, and it actually worked. No, this is cool. It actually worked like out of the box with no tweaking necessary. It's pretty wild. So I was thinking to myself, how hard would it be to add a gradient to this type of theme right here? So, yeah, gradient time. So I'm going to open up the files that you need to change in order to make that work. So we're going to add it to the 2 presets. We're going to add it to the style customizer. Yeah.
Bright pink to go to yellow.
Yeah, pink to yellow.
And then my little like helper palette here flashing in front. People are like, "What the heck is he doing?"
I'm going to crop it to the background browser side.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So in order to add a gradient to this, it's actually pretty easy to do. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this body background color, since it's one solid color, and we're going to make 2 variables for it. And so to do that, we just copy and paste from my clipboard. No, in order to do that, we just take this and we delete it and we replace it with 2 variables: body background top and body background bottom.
Well, this is pretty developable, right?
This is kind of style developer.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of designers who know how to use less. I think that it's not a skill set that is a bad idea. So know how to do.
The XML is the part that
You know what we're doing right now?
Yeah. So
Good how-to, man. Good how-to.
I thought Lex was like a compiles your code.
it does. But you don't have to know any details about that, which is nice.
Oh.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into each preset, and since we now have 2 variables that are named differently, we're going to remove the old one, and we're going to add the new one with just the same values. So body background top color, body background bottom color here. And the right one, yes. And then finally, we have to go into our actual style sheet, and we're gonna import Twitter Bootstraps mix-ins, which, if anyone knows less, mix-ins are just a way to add functions to CSS. They have a gradient mix-in just defined so that you don't have to write the 50 lines of CSS to do a gradient. And we're going to swap out our brain dead background color with Twitter Bootstraps mix-in for it, which has the top color and just uses the bottom color. So this is all just less stuff right there.
I think it's more.
It sounds like a horrible kind of like pudding pop or something. New mix-ins.
Mix-ins.
Jam and butter.
And now we're going to clear, actually, no, hold on. We're going to clear our cache, because we actually do write this into a CSS cache, as you might imagine. And we're going to clear that cache.
3 times.
And, okay, so now, when we come back into design, if we load this guy up again, you'll see we've got body background top and body background bottom, and they're set to the defaults. It's a little weird because we're getting rid of variables on the fly that were being used and moving them into variables that weren't. So the system was like, I can't find the variable you're trying to get me to render. So swapping back to this preset sort of fixes that problem. And so now at this point, if we just change this guy down to something like that, we've got ourselves a gradient.
Oh man!
I know, and then you can be like, yo, I want some trend time.
Who chose those colors?
Yeah, I love it. I've saved this preset as its own preset.
Who needs front page? Good to go.
Needs more
Oh, here
something.
we go.
Needs more Stonehenge.
Is that like a style you still?
It's beautiful, you guys.
It's up to the theme, man.
Found the
You
new
know, we won't
base
plug too
concrete
much
5
of this
theme.
stuff into our core themes on
But that's like a style that still requires.
What is the problem with this? I like how
Is there applying a background to each?
yeah, I think I think I might have messed up some of the CSS on this because I think every element is getting the background image, which
Hey, why
looks
not?
pretty
I
MySpacey,
mean,
honestly.
you're
It's like
gonna
the
go
asterisk.
away.
Yeah.
Wow, we have achieved a new level of something.
Yeah.
Horribleness.
But don't worry, because when you edit the stuff, you automatically get to edit it in the context of what you're working with. So you never leave the
Easy.
gradient behind.
Great.